Al-Moallem, we do not allow anyone to harm our national sovereignty and do not accept dictations because we adhere to our political independence and reject violence. And Salehi says no country or official has the right to decide on behalf of the Syrians, and the major powers should work together to halt violence in Syria. Syrian Arab Army units restore security and stability to a number of villages after eliminating mercenary terrorist groups. Good afternoon, this is News in English from the Syrian Arab television in Damascus. A session of talks was concluded in Tehran today between Foreign and Expatriate Minister Al-Moallem and his Iranian counterpart Ali Akbar Salehi to discuss means of finding a peaceful solution for the crisis in Syria. Following the talks, a joint press conference was held in which Mr. Al-Moallem affirmed that Syria confronts a crisis in which most of the globe is taking part, stressing that the Syrian people are confronting this crisis firmly, thanks to the steadfastness of our people, the determination of our leadership, and the support of brothers and friends. Regarding the national dialogue process among all the Syrian parties, Al-Moallem said that the Syrian government offered all required guarantees to those who are willing for dialogue, inside and outside the country, adding that the initiative of dialogue came from our belief that the solution to the crisis is a political one. He pointed out that as the dialogue progresses, violence escalates on the ground, and to guarantee the success of political dialogue, it is inevitable to halt violence and try its sources to work for building up the future of Syria. The Syrian Foreign Minister added that the political program for the comprehensive solution launched by President Assad was endorsed by the Syrian government, which formed a committee to implement it and held 22 meetings with various political parties inside and outside Syria, pointing out that the government took appropriate legal procedures and guarantees for those willing to take part in the dialogue. The Foreign Minister affirmed that the Syrian government is open to the political solution, but those who want the solution should not punish the Syrians. And if Washington wants the political solution, it can halt bloodshed. He expressed astonishment at the Emir of Qatar's complaint against the Security Council because it does not strike Syria. Al-Moallem praised the Syrian Arab Army role in defending Syrian citizens, their properties according to the constitution and law, pointing out that this role would continue until the elimination of terrorism. In reply to a question put by pressman, Al-Moallem affirmed that Syria does not allow anyone to interfere with national sovereignty, expressing rejection of any foreign dictate, because Syrians adhere to their political independence, referring that the Syrian people are the only party who decide their future and their leadership. In a reply to a question about the Russian stand, Al-Moallem said that the Russian stand is firm because it is based on the principles of the international law and the UN Charter, referring that the Russian leadership was exerting great efforts at the international arena to reach a political solution for the crisis in Syria. In turn, Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Salehi said that the major powers should put their differences aside and work together to halt violence in Syria, stressing that all parties involved in the Syrian crisis are responsible for the bloodshed. He considered some parties' requests from the Syrian government to step down an intervention in Syria's internal affairs, pointing out that they do not have the right to decide on behalf of the Syrian people. Dr. Salehi affirmed that one reason for the continuity of the crisis in Syria was the support offered by some parties to gunmen, most of them are mercenaries, referring that the solution of the crisis is not military but through dialogue among the Syrians themselves. He went on to say that those who insist to carry weapons are responsible for the bloodshed and massacres in Syria. Salehi concluded that the Syrian government had announced readiness for dialogue and those who hinder dialogue are responsible for the Syria's bloodshed, adding that there are double standards that contribute to prolonging the crisis in Syria. An official source at the General Command of the Army and Armed Forces in the Syrian Arab Republic said that in cooperation with locals, army units managed to restore security and stability to some of Aleppo villages lying on the international highway, including Salamieh, Athraya, Khanasir al-Mazra'a, Amud, Tel Shghaib, Al-Nerab and Aleppo International Airport. The source added that the army units offered urgent aid to the citizens there. Units of the Syrian Armed Forces carried out a series of qualitative operations against terrorist gatherings in several areas in Idlib countryside, inflicting heavy losses upon them. A source in the city said that a unit of the armed forces ambushed terrorist groups in Al-Mintar town in Jisr al-Shughul countryside, killing and injuring many terrorists. A unit of the armed forces also destroyed an ammunition store in Armalli village. The terrorist Omar al-Khattab was reportedly killed. Army units also targeted terrorist groups in the towns of Zayt, Al-Kniya and Ain al-Barda, killing and injuring its members. Also in Damascus countryside, a unit of the Syrian Arab Army clashed with terrorists in Adra in Damascus countryside, killing a number of them and destroying several cars loaded with weapons and ammunition. A source in the city said that another army unit destroyed a den for the terrorists in Dhar al-Beda in the east of Al-Ghouta, along with the equipment and weapons inside them, killing a number of terrorists who were attacking civilians. A unit of the Syrian army clashed with an armed terrorist group who was terrifying the families in Al-Arba'in area in Dar al-Balad, killing a number of terrorists, injuring many of them, and confiscating their weapons. Units of the Syrian armed forces killed and injured terrorists and destroyed a number of their vehicles and machine gun equipped cars in a series of qualitative operations against their gatherings in Homs countryside. A military source said that a den for leaders of the terrorist groups in Al-Rastan was destroyed along with weapons, ammunition and terrorists inside. The source added that an army unit inflicted heavy losses on an armed terrorist group that was attacking the locals and properties in Assan and destroyed a mortar cannon they were using. Meanwhile, a convoy of vehicles for the terrorists was destroyed on Al-Qaryatain Qasr al-Hira al-Shirqi axis. The source added that a unit of the Syrian Arab Army carried out a qualitative operation against terrorists gatherings in Rabli, killing and injuring a number of terrorists. Several vehicles and motorcycles for terrorists were also destroyed. Earlier, an army unit eliminated an armed terrorist group that was terrifying people and committing acts of plunder and sabotage against citizens in Al-Mzara'a village to the east of Al-Rastan. Among the terrorists killed during this operation was Ma'mun al-Khatib, the leader of an armed terrorist group affiliated to Al-Nusra Front. In Latakia countryside, a unit of the Syrian army clashed with two terrorist groups that used to terrify people and sabotage their properties in the villages of Veitshluq and Al-Khadra. An official source in the governorate said that the clashes resulted in the killing and wounding of scores of terrorists. A unit from the Syrian army repelled today an armed terrorist group that was committing acts of plunder and sabotage to the northeast of Raqqa, inflicting heavy losses upon the attackers. An official source said that another army unit fought an armed group attempt to infiltrate into the city through its northern entrance, inflicting heavy losses upon the terrorists and destroying their equipment. A number of world newspapers and media outlets have published reports and news about the supply of gunmen with various kinds of weapons funded by Gulf states. New facts documented by films were screened on YouTube in which heavy weapons provided to terrorists are shown.
Many documents about the size of the military Western support with the Gulf's funds of the mercenaries and the terrorists in Syria have been coming in, and they revealed every day the documents that are being revealed by several newspapers around the world that say that the Washington Post, the New York Times, in addition to other newspapers, show that there is a great support that was being provided to the insurgents in Syria with the involvement of the U.S. and the Western approval. And they also say that the finance was approved and facilitated by other acts. These reports also say that this finance was approved and facilitated by their acts. This is also a blatant intervention, as many sophisticated weapons were sent to the terrorists in Syria, including Israeli-made weapons. This was shown on the YouTube videos, and it was shown as the insurgents are carrying Israeli anti-tank launchers and Dragon anti-armor shells.
The situation in Egypt is chaotic as there is increasing popular anger against the policies taken by President Mohammed Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood group. In Al-Mansoura city, 4 citizens were killed and more than 10 others were injured due to a confrontation that took place between the demonstrators and security forces. Confrontations increased after a tank ran over one of the protesters, killing him, where the tank moved quickly and randomly to disperse the demonstrators until one of them went under it and got killed. In the meantime, the civil disobedience is ongoing and it is spreading to many other governorates other than Bursaid. That was it. More details on our website www.syriaonline.sy. What's the volume of losses in the free zone sector in Syria and updates on the agricultural marketing in the country? All that and more in our economic news, but after the break.